It's great to be here and see still all of these laser guys here. It went back 50 years. Now that's a long time. It was an interesting history how it started. And I was a starboat sailor, and we made a starboat. Here was my first fiberglass starboat. I had several wooden boats, and we had done pretty well. And I made this starboat in a garage at the lumber yard on Highway 101 where you turn off into Belvedere. I rented a garage. It was for $35, and I could get the hull mold in, and I had to leave the deck mold outside, or whatever we were doing. That's how we built the boat. It took me 4.5 months to build the boat on the weekends, and before that I had maybe 3 wooden boats. When we finished this boat, we were going to take it to a regatta in Miami, the Bacardi Cup. That was a big deal at that time. It still is. And there were maybe 70 boats. And I asked my dad, who was a pretty good sailor in the bay with big boats, he was 63. And I asked him if he would crew with me. He said, well, I'll crew, but these guys that hang out over the starboat with this mini hiking, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll sit on the rail. And if we're doing well in the last race, I'll slide over the rail and I'll mini hike. Hell, that was nice. We went, he was a master swimmer at that time. He swam all of his life. He actually swam twice before the Golden Gate Bridge was made. He swam the Golden Gate swim twice. We went to Miami with this brand new boat. We're doing pretty well. There was all kinds, maybe 70 boats there. And at that time, the Star Class had a rule that you could only wear enough clothes that would be appropriate for the day. Before that, there was a rule, no rule, and you could wear anything. They had big wool sweaters and pants, sweatpants sewn together, so you could probably pick up maybe 30 pounds. They allowed us to wear 3 sweatshirts sewn together, 3 pair of pants sewn together, but it had to go in the boat the morning of the race. They had to be dry. Well, that was easy to do at night. We'd put them in the washer dryer, and we could go down the boat with this bundle of clothes, and we'd get in the boat, would sail off away from everybody else, and we'd put the clothes in the bilge of the Star, and we'd pull up the bailers and get these sweatpants all really, really heavy. And before the Star, you put these things on. And I can remember going back to Coral Reef Yacht Club. We were doing very well. And my dad would go to the end of the pool. Everybody else would come in. All these guys would have 3 races a day, and these big football guys that were crews, they'd go to the hamburger bar, and they'd get a couple of beers, and they'd sit down and say, oh, three races a day, that was so tough. That was really tough. I'm really tired. And my dad would go to the end of the pool, and he'd take off the sweat tops and pull down the sweatpants, and he had a little small swimming trunks that were really small. He would dive in the pool at 63, and he would do maybe 30 laps. And these guys, all these big football players would say, who is that guy? Who is that guy there? They'd say, that's Trask's old man. Really? God, look at me, really? So that was fun. And we took 3rd in the regatta behind Lowell North and Ding Schoonmaker. That was kind of the start of the Star Class, my history in the class. We went on that time we went east. The next race was at Nassau. And we went there, and my dad gave me enough time off work so that I could go for a couple extra days. get oriented to the conditions and sail the boat. And we had the boat the first day at the yacht club, and it was right there. And I was having breakfast at the club, and somebody crawled up on the trailer and looked inside. And I said, well, maybe I can build another boat. And by the time I got out there, he had disappeared down in the boatyard. This second day, the same guy got on the trailer, stepped on the fender, got up, slid into the boat, laid down inside the boat. So I went out and I introduced myself, and he says, oh, I know who you are. You built this boat. And I said, yes. It was Ian Bruce from Montreal. And he said, you built this boat out of Arex foam. I said, yes. He said, well, maybe you and I are the only two people in the North American continent that know anything about Arex foam. It was an open cell foam, so if you put resin on the foam before you put it into the boat, it would get soft. So you couldn't, that was not good for a deck or for the hull. So you had to put very hot resin. Maybe it would kick in maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and that would close the cells, and then you could use this, and that was stuff as a board, and you could put it in the boat and on the deck. And so we made this boat out of Arex foam, and Ian Bruce, when he got in the boat, he said, is your wife here tonight? And I said, yes. He said, well, we should meet. And after dinner, he said, let's go to the library. I want to show you something. And he pulled out a 8 by 10 black and white, and it was a laser sailing around in a reservoir that had snow around the cap of the reservoir. And he said to me, and I didn't know what a laser was at that time, he said, you know that boat? I said, no, I don't know that boat, but I know the skipper. You do? Who was that? I said, that was Hans Foe. He said, you know Hans Foe? I said, yes, I've seen him in the Star class in Europe, and I know Hans very well. Anyway, he said, I just finished 10 days at the New York Boat Show with this prototype that I made. And he said, I just can't, I've been going over how I'm going to get these boats to the West Coast. I know it's going to be popular. In 10 days, I sold 125 boats at the boat show. And I've got to go back and make a factory and hire a bunch of guys, make some tooling. But how to get these boats to San Francisco? And he said, I think you and I should sit down and talk. And at that time, I had that garage in this lumber yard at $35 a month. And he said, well, you know, you've got that factory in California. He said, do you think you could build a laser? And I said, yeah, I think our factory could do that. Well, there were two of us working, myself and Carl Peterson, and it took us 3.5 months to make this first starboat. And that was the start. And then, so I had to go back to Montreal to get the license to have the first laser factory in the United States. And we went back and watched the tooling and the layout and all the way they were building the boat. And at night we would talk about how we were going to get, how we were going to pay for the opportunity to be the laser factory in the United States. And finally we negotiated a settlement, and we got the license to build as many boats as we could build. And we also got the right that anything else Laser came up with in the future, we would also have the right to buy that tooling and build that boat. And that was a Laser 2 that did come along. Anyway, they sent us a boxcar full of tooling and maybe 25 boats, and I built a trailer that had 10 boats on the side and stacked array up. And the first guy I called after I had that trailer and the boats, I called Chris. I said, Chris, I'm going to have this trailer at Lake Merritt, and I've got to start for these 10 boats, and I want you to be one of the first guys. He was one of the first guys that I'd called at that time. He was sailing what were those wooden boats from
Okay
Canada?
Dinghies.
Okay Dinghies. Yeah, and so the Laser just was the right time, the right place, and they took off like crazy. We built, in 10 years, we built 11,000 lasers, a couple of tasers, and we never did get a Laser 2. And finally, after 10 years, there was a lot of problems with the main company, and Ian Bruce, after about 4 years, he had to get some venture capital to continue to build the boats, and they were building like 15 boats a day. And after about 3 months, he missed his payment to the venture capitalists, and they came in and said, "We know how to run these companies. You didn't know anything about boats. We're going to come in and we're going to take it over. You have to go to the back room, sit in the back, and maybe you can work in the factory." So he got out about that time. We continued. We built boats for 10 years. We also built 30 star boats at the time, and we also built 300 J24s. So, and it was in Santa Fe. So, I recognize some of these faces over a long time. That was 50 years ago. God, that seems like forever. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see that the class is surviving. I'm glad to see that Chris is one of the leaders in the class and has been for a long time. But it's great to see that people are still interested in the boat and are having fun, because that's what it was about. That's what we built the boat for. We did there was a lot of camaraderie in the group. We did things just like this at Clear Lake. We went to LA with this trailer. We built a pretty good junior program at St. Francis, and I can remember I was able to get to buy a Navy Suburban that was auctioned off, and I went to the yacht club and said, we want to get a truck for the lasers, and I'll give you my 10-boat trailer. And they would put 6 or 7 kids in the carryall, and they had a 2x4 that was about that long, and with this trailer behind and 6 kids in the boat, they'd take this 2x4 and I'd put it on the gas pedal and put it next to the seat, and the thing would go about maybe 55 or 65. That was the fastest it would go on the straightaway.
That was autonomous driving back in the day.
They developed into a 3-to-1 purchase.
Yeah. So anyway, it does go back, and we had a lot of events just like this. So it's good to see everybody still enjoying the boat.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see you guys here.